Hello, students. This is an audio reading of the textbook pages for Chapter 1, Section 2, titled Invaders, Traders, and Empire Builders. Before I read textbook pages, what I like to do is preview these pages. The simplest way to preview is to take a picture walk. That literally means look at any photographs or visuals, maps, charts that the textbook provides for you, and to read the headings, subheadings, and vocabulary words. This is a way to kind of warm up your brain before you get into the nitty-gritty of textbook reading. So the first image we see, again, this section is titled Invaders, Traders, and Empire Builders. The first image we see is this really, really beautiful blue artifact. Behind the artifact, we see a cuneiform tablet. The caption reads, Hammurabi, front, Hammurabi's code, back. So this figure in blue, that represents the Babylonian king Hammurabi, and behind him are his laws. First major heading we see, First Empires Arise in Mesopotamia. Subheading, Sargon builds the first empire. We see Sargon in blue. The next subheading, Hammurabi brings Babylon to power. Next page. Hammurabi in blue. Codify in blue, codify. Another subheading, establishing civil law, with civil law, that term being in blue. Next subheading, defining crime and punishment, with criminal law in blue. Final subheading, other accomplishments made by Hammurabi. Over here to the right, we have some images, a part of our picture walk. I love this artifact right here. It's beautiful. It looks like a coin. I don't know what it is off the top of my head because I'm previewing. So down at the bottom, civilizations expand. As new civilizations took control of Fertile Crescent lands, their empires expanded, but stayed near the two large rivers. Many elements of shared culture existed among these civilizations, including worship of Marduk, above, who became the region's chief god. Okay, so this figure is a Mesopotamian god, Marduk. To the left, we have a map. All right, we see Mesopotamia, Asia Minor, the Arabian Desert, the Syrian Desert. Let's look at the map key down below so we can read this map. Outlined in orange, we have the territory of the Akkadian Empire, okay, which we see in orange. It looks like it extends from the Persian Gulf a little past Babylon. In purple, outlined in purple, the Babylonian Empire of Hammurabi. Okay, so we see that out. Okay, we do see that the Babylonian Empire was larger in territory than the Akkadian Empire. The region in green represents Sumer, what historians believe to be the first civilization that was comprised of many city-states like Ur, Uruk, and Kish. And this pale green land represents the Fertile Crescent. Now remember, Mesopotamia, when we break down the meaning of that word, the word means the land between the rivers. What rivers? We see on the map Euphrates River and the Tigris River. The land between the two rivers, those two rivers are Tigris and Euphrates. Continuing on, conquests bring new empires and ideas. That's the next heading. A subheading is Hittites learn the secret of ironworking. Assyrian warriors expand ancient knowledge. And then here's a great name, Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar revives Babylon, with his name Nebuchadnezzar being highlighted in blue. Over here to the left, man, what a beautiful visual that is. Intricate. The caption reads, Rebuilding Babylon. When Nebuchadnezzar became king, he had much of Babylon rebuilt in glorious fashion. The Ishtar Gate below is famous for its now faded blue bricks and animals depicting various gods. The Ishtar Gate. Next textbook page. No heading or subheading, but we have a checkpoint and a map. Assyria, Persia, and the Phoenician colonies. I'm going to skip reading that map for the time being because what I want to do is get on with the recording of this audio textbook. Invaders, Traders, and Empire Builders. Through thousands of years of war and peace, the peoples of the Middle East built great empires and made long-lasting innovations. The region became a vital crossroads where warriors and traders met, clashed, and mingled. Many of the beliefs and ideas of the ancient Middle East survived to shape our modern world. First empires arise in Mesopotamia. Again and again through time, nomadic peoples or ambitious warriors descended on the rich cities of the Fertile Crescent. While many invaders simply looted and burned, some stayed to rule. Powerful leaders created large, well-organized empires, bringing peace and prosperity to the region. Sargon built the first empire. About 2300 BC, Sargon, the ruler of Akkad, invaded and conquered the neighboring city-states of Sumer. He continued to expand his territory, building the first empire known to history. He appointed local rulers, each of whom served as king of the land he oversaw. However, the world's first empire did not last long. After Sargon's death, other invaders swept into the wide valley between the rivers, tumbling his empire into ruin. Hammurabi brings Babylon to power. In time, the Sumerian city-states revived and then resumed their power struggles. Eventually, however, new conquerors followed in Sargon's footsteps and imposed unity over the Fertile Crescent. About 1790 BC, Hammurabi, king of Babylon, brought much of Mesopotamia under the control of his empire. Hammurabi's most ambitious and lasting contribution was his publication of a set of laws known as Hammurabi's Code. Most of the laws had been around since Sumerian times, but Hammurabi wanted to ensure that everyone in his empire knew the legal principles his government would follow. He had artisans carve nearly 300 laws on a stone pillar for all to see. Hammurabi's Code was the first important attempt by a ruler to codify, or arrange and set down in writing, all the laws that would govern a state. Establishing civil law. One section of Hammurabi's Code codified civil law. This branch of law deals with private rights and matters, such as business contracts, property inheritance, taxes, marriage, and divorce. Much of Hammurabi's civil code was designed to protect the powerless, such as slaves or women. Some laws, for example, allowed a woman to own property and pass it on to her children. Another law spelled out the rights of a married woman, saying that if she was found to be blameless for the problems between herself and her husband, she could leave the marriage. If she were found to be at fault, however, the law instructed that she be thrown in the river. In general, Babylonian civil law gave a husband both legal authority over his wife and a legal duty to support her. The code also gave a father nearly unlimited authority over his children. The Babylonians believed that an orderly household was necessary for a stable empire. Defining crime and punishment. Hammurabi's Code also addressed criminal law. This branch of law deals with offenses against others, such as robbery, assault, or murder. Earlier traditions often permitted victims of crimes or their families to take the law into their own hands. By setting out specific punishments for specific offenses, Hammurabi's Code limited personal vengeance and encouraged social order. By today's standards, the punishments in Hammurabi's Code often seem cruel, following the principle of an eye for an eye and a life for a life. For example, If a house collapsed because of poor construction and the owner died as a result, the house's builder could be put to death. Still, such a legal code imposed more social order than existed when individuals sought their own justice. Other accomplishments made by Hammurabi. Although most famous for his code of laws, Hammurabi took other steps to successfully unite his empire. He improved the system of irrigation, organized a well trained army, and ordered many temples to be repaired. To encourage religious unity across his empire, he promoted Marduk, the patron god of Babylon, over older Sumerian gods. In time, Marduk became the chief god of Babylonian worship. There he is, Marduk. Conquest brings new empires and ideas. Later empires shaped the Middle East in different ways. Some conquerors, such as the Hittites, brought new skills to the region's people. Other conquerors uprooted the peoples they defeated, which had the side effect of spreading to new regions the ideas of those forced to move. Hittites learned the secret of iron working. The Hittites pushed out of Asia Minor into Mesopotamia in about 1400 BC. They brought with them a major advancement: the knowledge of how to extract iron from ore. The tools and weapons they made with iron were harder and had sharper edges than those made out of bronze or copper. Because iron was plentiful, the Hittites were able to arm more people at less expense. The Hittites tried to keep this valuable technology secret, but as their empire collapsed in about 1200 BC, Hittite ironsmiths migrated to serve customers elsewhere. The new knowledge thus spread across Asia, Africa, and Europe, ushering in the Iron Age. Assyrian warriors expand ancient knowledge. The Assyrians, who lived on the upper Tigris, also learned to forge iron weapons. They had established an empire by about 1350 BC, and by 1100 BC, they began expanding their empire across Mesopotamia. Over the course of 500 years, they earned a reputation for being among the most feared warriors in history. Historians are unsure why warfare was so central to Assyrian culture. Was it to keep others from attacking, or to please their god, Assur, by bringing wealth to the region? Whatever the reason, Assyrian rulers boasted of their conquests. One told of capturing Babylon. He proclaimed, "The city and its houses, from top to bottom, I destroyed and burned with fire." Despite their fierce reputation, Assyrian rulers encouraged a well-ordered society. They used riches from trade and war loot to pay for splendid palaces in their well-planned cities. They were also the first rulers to develop extensive laws regulating life within the royal household. For example, women of the palace were confined to secluded quarters and had to wear veils when they appeared in public. At Nineveh, King Assurbanipal founded one of the world's first libraries. There, he kept cuneiform tablets that he ordered scribes to collect from all over the Fertile Crescent. Those tablets have offered modern scholars a wealth of information about the ancient Middle East. Nebuchadnezzar revives Babylon. In 612 BC, shortly after Ashurbanipal's death, neighboring peoples joined forces to crush the once dreaded Assyrian armies. In their absence, Babylon, which a king named Nabopolassar had reestablished as a power in 625 BC, quickly revived under its aggressive and ruthless second king, Nebuchadnezzar. The new Babylonian Empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. After nearly 1,000 years of the city facing decline and destruction, Nebuchadnezzar oversaw the rebuilding of the canals, temples, walls, and palaces of Babylon. During his reign, the city became one of the largest and most highly regarded in the history of ancient Mesopotamia. Nebuchadnezzar surrounded Babylon with a defensive moat and a brick wall that was 85 feet thick. 9 solid gateways dedicated to important gods allowed people to pass through the wall. The most famous one today, the Ishtar Gate, was made of bricks glazed bright blue and covered in lions representing the goddess Ishtar, dragons representing the god Marduk, and bulls representing the god Hadad. At the center of the city, Nebuchadnezzar enlarged and decorated the city's ziggurat to the gods and restored the temple, honoring the city's chief god, Marduk. Although the remains have not yet been found, Nebuchadnezzar may have built the famous Hanging Gardens, known as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, near his main palace. The gardens were probably made by planting trees and flowering plants on the steps of a huge ziggurat. According to legend, Nebuchadnezzar had the gardens built to please his wife, who was homesick from the hills, where she had grown up.